And I've I've gone on record in saying that, you know, the first half of this year is going to be really good for silver prices, in my view. And I think towards the middle and towards the end, and again, not to confuse this with premiums, but the spot price, I think will start to feel some downward pressure from when the Fed will start to raise their Fed funds rate. And when that happens, there's this strong sensitivity between real rates and the silver price. And as those real rates rise, the silver price will start to come down a bit. Now, for me, that'll be a good time to get in there,
Yeah.
and I'm going to start stacking a lot more during that time. Right now, I'm building up some cash. I've said, I have some expenses that I need to take care of this year, but some of that cash, I'm hoping it will actually go back down to that area where I first got into silver. I'm hoping it goes down to around 17, 18,
Whoa.
$19, and that way I'll go back in and get a bit more silver. But that's just my overall view as far as the outlook for silver currently right now and towards the end of the year. And as far as what you're seeing right now, Silver Slayer, what's your view? I mean, that's my view. We can
I could,
we can disagree or agree,
yeah,
but
I just couldn't see a silver ever going back that low.
Mhm.
I just think there's too many people interested now. And I mean, looking back, like even a couple of years,
Yeah.
um, like when the virus started,
Mhm.
I guess we did see it, $11 in March of
Oh yeah.
2020. So I guess I have to like remember that as well. Like, 2 years ago, silver was. So I guess like it is, a lot of people do become desensitized to higher prices. Even myself just realizing that. Um, but now I guess moving forwards, like I think silver is going to hit 50 plus dollars by the year 2025. Like, and
2025, yeah.
yeah, that's when, the Green New Deal will be in full effect. Silver scarcity will be to a whole nother level.
Mhm.
Even electric vehicles by then, like there's going to be a lot of silver needed, but the supply is going to be extremely low. So I couldn't see it over the next couple of years going downwards to that degree. If it did, it would be, within this year, like if something happened or the economy starts getting stronger or something along those lines. But or even with like the FOMC, they have a lot of power over silver prices. But for like the medium term, even, or I guess I don't know what you would consider like next couple of years. But I couldn't see the price going that low. But
Mhm.
even if it was like $20, I would still be buying it. I mean, regardless, I'll still buy it right now,
Yeah, yeah.
honestly, like, uh, but I guess like why do you say $17? Is it or what time frame are you talking about?
So it's not necessarily tied to a time frame. It's more so just tied to some of the inputs that I'm seeing. And honestly, I could pull it up here.
Yeah.
I
Well,
have my
so
my
an-
website here.
another question too.
Mhm.
Is that going off of you said your entry points of when you started, so you're trying to keep your dollar per ounce average um as low as possible, right? Obviously, but um
Right.
you made it sound like almost you're purposely waiting below 20 to enter, but you're trying to do it within, like 2 years or whatever I don't know.
Yeah. So the idea is that, oh yeah. So I'm not necessarily thinking that the price will go down within like a year to like $17. I do think that between now and sometime, I would say, now this is just a guesstimate. No one really knows what's going to happen with
Yeah.
an impending recession, but or when that'll happen. But let's just say if you are a if you take the view that there are business cycles and that there are expansions, peaks, corrections, recessions, so on and so forth. currently many people are thinking that, okay, we might be somewhere in a peakier area, and we may start to see a little bit of a correction towards the end of the year. Now, I don't think that'll be the recession. I do think we might have a little bit of a correction, but if we were to take the view of just averages, we might start to see a recession within the next, handful of years. That may even take us to where you think silver may go up, which will be around 2025. In my view, I think silver and gold follow a cyclical behavior in the short term, but in the long term, they just go up as long as we have people printing money. But in the short term, following cycles, after we get out of those recessionary periods and we start to get into expansion with inflation expectations, that's when you start to see those prices really move higher. And I think if we were to take that view that, hey, recessions happen every, 5 to 10 years or so, let's just say by 2024 or 2025, with the anticipation of inflation coming in 2026 or 2027, we might start to see prices begin to rise, pretty aggressively from wherever the base is. And we always have, after every business cycle, a rising price base in silver. So it never goes down further than than the previous cycle's base. So, in my view, I think that we may if we are going to go back down and retreat, I don't see it going down and settling around like $10 or $11 or something. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down to, let's say, 15, 16, 17 for a little bit, and then it'll rise back up again. And then when it rises, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes past 30 easily. And just start, and then start rising. So
if it went past 30, I think it would go into extreme overbought territory. Just because people would be so excited, or even especially when it breaks past 50 too, because
people start piling in at that point, I'm sure. But, and then
I was also going to say a little bit ago as well, 2008 to 2011 was like the perfect example of, I think, what we're in right now. Like the start of 2020 would be 2008 recession, / depression. Between that 3-year period, recession / depression, $1 billion stimulus. In 2008, you also had the what was that? Financial crisis. So it was financial crisis, recession / depression, $1 billion stimulus. 3 years later led to $50 silver. Now we have recession / depression, $1 trillion stimulus, which also a global pandemic and a silver shortage. And we also have the interest rates, which we've like back then it was a lot less severe, but that still led silver to $50. So if we're talking about like $1 trillion stimulus plus add on a global pandemic on top of this, if that led silver to $50 back then in 3 years, what could it lead to this time? And so if we're going to do 3 years from 2008 to 2011 to 3 years now, which would be 2023. I mean, obviously it wouldn't be exact, but it's very similar. I mean, if you really do look at it, it's very similar. And I've covered articles on this. But I'm curious to see when that or what that's going to do to the price, at the end of things. Could be 2023, 24.
Yeah, and I think we might have talked about this in previous episodes, but one of the things I think prevented silver from going that high this time around was the fact that instead of a outright financial economic recession, we had a virus, and it just kept appearing, disappearing, and then new one, and then it will go away, and then a new one, and then it will go away. And every single time there's a period that it looked like, okay, it's going away, now we're back to the races, then a new one will come, and then it'll take the price right back down again. I think if the next recession is completely an economic one, and there is no virus that'll be the cause of it. I think what we'll see is silver finally get to that point where it's like, all right, we're going past 30, we're going up to 50. I think that momentum was lost because of, all
Yeah.
right, we see Delta. And,
Yeah.
and then also during that time when Delta came, or right before Delta got there, we were heading up. Delta comes, and then we come back down. And then right during that time, that's when Jerome Powell was saying, we're
Yeah.
thinking about potentially,
Yeah.
reducing our asset purchases. And then maybe after that, we're going to start thinking about rate hikes. That was around the end of the summer of 2021. If Jerome Powell had not started talking that way during that time and Delta went away, I think we would have seen the same thing where prices of silver would have gone back up. But
Yeah.
because that started to happen, people started to readjust things a bit more. So going back to kind of going back to my view, I think we would have hit $50 silver if this was a true um, financial recession. Because, like you said, we had way more money poured in. Inflation, CPI was higher than what we've seen since the 80s. And in my view, during that time, in 2021, I think we would have seen a higher a higher price in silver and gold. But of course, all these new variants just came out of nowhere, and it just shut down things economically. People started to have supply chain issues again, and things start to close down again. But when the next recession comes, and if it's financial, I think that's when we'll start to see silver and gold get back to those heights again. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.